What I want to share with you is this concept of confusing motivation with or for fear. And it's another phrase that I heard Alex Hormozi say. And what's interesting is I'm reading this book right here, When Violence is the Answer by, I think, Tim Larkin. And I'm going to talk about the book shortly, but what I want to focus on first is just this concept of like confusing motivation with fear. And to me, what it means when I first heard it was I generally set goals, or I used to set goals based on what kind of an optimistic perspective, right? Focusing on the good. What do I want? And what I realized was that really it's the negative emotions and negative, like the fear that drives me to take action. And I'll use an example of losing weight first, and then I'm going to talk about how to maybe apply it for investing in commercial real estate. So I want to say probably for the past 3 years, I've had this goal of say hitting 190 pounds. And um, as soon as I get sub 200, I kind of let up and I just generally go back to my old ways. And when I heard Hermosi talk about using fear to really motivate you to take action, I thought to myself, okay, number one, even just sharing it publicly like this, now that creates like going public obviously is a sense of accountability and fear that I'll look bad if I don't take action, right? So that's number one. Number two, I could create consequences. For example, I could maybe bet a friend of mine $1,000, and if I don't reach it by December 31st, 2022, got to give them $1,000. Like the consequence has to be big enough, right? That you're actually fearful. If it's $100 or $50 or something that's kind of inconsequential, I don't think that that would be enough to stay motivated. At least for me, right? For you, it might be very different. And then the last one could be to scare myself, right? I could go to the doctor, I could get blood work done, I could really try to create a sense of urgency to lose that weight because it's having negative impacts on my health. So that would be potentially how I could get quote unquote leverage on myself. I think Tony Robbins talks about that. Now let's talk about how to maybe apply this in the commercial real estate world. And what's interesting is um, often I'll have people come to me that want to invest in cash flowing commercial properties. And it's usually based on like the towards, right? The optimistic, the positive things. Retire early, send their kids to a private school, replace their income, have the choice to do what they want during the day. And those are all wonderful and great, but frequently because people are coming to me and they're already comfortable in life, they don't really need to make a change. And in order to make that change, I think having some sense of fear, if you will, to push them into action could potentially help them, right? Because I'll give you a couple of examples. There's two, three guys right now in my coaching, and they, if I was to stack all the people that I thought were going to succeed in terms of the resources, the time, the money, etc., I would have expected I would not have expected those guys to accomplish it. But I feel because their back is against the wall and they have the most pressure and focus to really accomplish what it is that they set out, that they are achieving. Like I think they just, I know they just went unconditional on a 60 unit building or just under 60 units. And it's the second property that this one individual has purchased in the last 12 months. And if you were to look, call it 18 months ago when he started, um, he needed a lot in order to get there. And yet I think I maybe I'll have him on the podcast and interview him. But I feel that fear of being stuck in what it is that he does on a day to day is what motivates him to take action versus someone that probably doesn't mind their day to day job or business, if you will. And so there's really not that same sense of urgency, that same motivation to get out there and take action. So, um, here's a couple of things that could potentially help, right? And you might be able to read a little bit into some of these comments because I'm using them on myself. Okay, so using fear that maybe one day my business won't be around and I need another source of income, right? Fear that life goes by fast, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, and what do I have to show for it? Fear that I won't have something substantial that I can leave behind for my kids, right? When I think about those things versus replacing income, sending my kids to a private school, having fancier vacations, retiring early, like those are certainly nice to haves, but personally not enough to keep me moving forward versus some of these kind of negative emotions that really cause me to take action. And when you watch The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, or if you've watched, what's it called? The one with Tom Brady, Man in the Arena, you can see both these guys, at least from what I could tell, they used like negative things that were in their environment to really propel them and push them to keep them driving forward. So, anyways, I know that this is a bit of a divergence. Usually we talk about quote unquote how to invest in commercial real estate. I think right now, given where the market is at, there's a lot of fear out there, right? And that's going to cause people to do one of two things in my experience, right? People are going to either retreat or they're going to look at this as an opportunity. Frankly, I am looking at it like it's an opportunity, not because you want to take advantage of people's misfortunes. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just that typically in times of especially down markets, if you will, people will get fearful and they will retreat, right? And I can already see it with less buyers in the market, less capital in the market. But that doesn't mean that there aren't still great opportunities, and every market is different. What's interesting is I was just having this conversation. I wasn't even planning to share this, but I was having this conversation with, it was either my brother-in-law or someone else, and I said, like when you look at it, in the Canadian market specifically, Vancouver and Toronto are usually where the headlines, right, in terms of what real estate is doing in Canada, and nobody really kind of focused on Alberta. And so Calgary, Edmonton, specifically Calgary, because I'm here, our market has been essentially flat, declining a little bit, coming back a little bit over the past 10 years. And so like we've been living this, well, since at least 2014. So I guess that's what, 8 years now. And maybe 2015. And the fact that the market is kind of pulling back right now, at least for me, it gives me optimism because it just means that there's going to be less buyers. And when you're a buyer of real estate, generally speaking, you want less competition. And so I'm looking forward to it, and stay tuned in terms of some of the moves that we're making. But I can tell you right now, we have 6 different projects on the go, and we'll see where things kind of shake out. So anyways, to summarize, this kind of concept of confusing motivation for fear. Look, I think that just really being self-aware and knowing what it is that drives you is extremely important. And just having that comfort to know that when I'm setting a goal and need to take that action, it may not be focusing on the things that I think are going to propel me into action. It's really more looking at the negative side of things that are going to kind of cause me to get into it. So a little bit of a ramble. Sometimes when you take a chance and do something new, like talk about these kind of deeper philosophical topics, they don't come out quite as smooth as if I was talking about cap rates or investing in a multifamily development or something to that effect. But, kind of tackled the podcast topic. Hopefully you found it valuable. And I didn't really talk too much about this book, but it is very good. And I'll just leave you with this. Tim, the author, talks about the fact that in a class of 20 people that train with him, right? And he's really into kind of self-defense and protecting yourself. He says that 70% of the people that are in his class have experienced some violent act in there, right? Like a fight or being robbed or something to that effect. The other 30% have seen someone else close to them in their life that's happened. He says it's very rare that people will come in and learn self-defense just to be proactive. And what's interesting is, to me, that's a similar analogy of using fear, if you will, as that motivator, right? Because you've already experienced it. Um, and I can tell you, when I was younger and got jumped, that's when I started to take self-defense much more seriously myself. So, anyways, I'll leave it with you. Hopefully, you can take it and apply it in your own world, whether it's in business, whether it's in real estate, whether it's in fitness, because I think that this kind of applies broadly, right? And you may not be someone that operates best from fear. You may be someone that really does motivate to taking action, focusing on the positives, right? I'm just sharing what was a realization for me. So that's it. Have a great week. Bye for now.